This is my satire comic book that I made. I named it Beauteous New Mankind because in the book Brave New World, the one of the characters named John the Savage mentions a specific quote from Shakespeare that is quote unquote beauteous new world, which is partially, I believe, how he derived the title. And so I used that towards this one in order to kind of incorporate my whole idea with that. So I changed it to mankind because that's like my new little twist for reversal as my satire component. All right, this is featuring my cat in my quarantine timing. Okay, so here we have Beauteous New Mankind, a satirical reinterpretation of Huxley's Brave New World by me. And I will go ahead and just, I guess, read it and explain how it correlates with this book. So we start off. Overconsumption of resources caused by overpopulation threatens the survival of humankind. Depression became a mental illness epidemic, and people drew farther and farther away from religious faith. Now, I kind of incorporated this into my comic book because it correlates to Brave New World, as this was written in the early 1900s, and it talks about an idea of overproducing humans through a lab-generated process. So I kind of went for the reversal satirical approach for this. So, and it's also more modern because nowadays our overconsumption and overpopulation and all these are very, they're very significant in today's world and very evident. So I went ahead and instead of doing, producing a bunch of people, we're gonna solve this by reducing the overpopulation. Okay. With medical advancements, new drugs are invented to cure the rising problems society faced. The new drugs prevented pregnancy, cured depression, and gave people the happiness they searched for. The government took hold of the drugs and distributed them nationwide. A divide among populations arose, those embracing the new way of life, calling themselves the new mankind. Those who embraced modern advances raved over these life-changing drugs, while others chose to adhere to the old ways of life, calling themselves fundamentalists. So here I'm starting to introduce this divide among populations that is rose, one called the fundamentalists and one called new mankind. It's sort of this drug in Brave New World called Soma that was introduced to society, kind of took over, and people began to use it as like a supplement for happiness. For example, when they visited John and his what they call like a savage, like really an Indian reservation kind of thing that's separate from the new world that was created. They saw like this distinction between people who had embraced the new way of life with Soma as their drug for happiness and labs creating people. Really like promiscuity becomes very relevant, as sex doesn't have any meaning because they don't have sex to have children. They just have sex with anyone. So this is the second one. Soon the populace of new mankind developed drug dependence. Fundamentalists protested drug use until their protests rendered useless as people refused change and they decided to split away. The fundamentalists exiled to past native land. So this is kind of showing the progression of a cause and effect idea that, as shown in today's society, how people are dependent on, this is actually the NA sign, which is Narcotics Anonymous. My family is very big and into that. So this is kind of the idea against Narcotics Anonymous, like the drug war right now in the 21st century. People are dependent on drugs a lot, and they supplement it for their happiness, because as people move farther and farther away from religion, as our generations continue to as we continue to develop, we continue to fall away from religion, and this leaves us with a lack of morals and a system to live off of, basically. So it's becoming more. It's more up to us how we can live, and this comes with consequences. So as this drug that's introduced into my comic book reinterpretation in Brave New World, it prevents pregnancy, cures depression, and basically it's like Soma. It does what people have always wanted. Everyone's searching for happiness, and now they have happiness, and so we're going to see the consequences of that. Fundamentalists, those who believed against the drug use and the idea of reducing overpopulation, they obviously went away, just like the Indian Territory reservation people who do not live in the Brave New World concept, and same thing here. New mankind favored polyamory over monogamy, as promiscuity became socially acceptable due to infertile women from easily accessible contraceptive drugs. Over time, births halted and successfully reduced the previous problem of overpopulation due to the contraceptive drug distribution. Class divide rose as the wealthy gained access to the drugs, while the poor struggled to maintain financial stability whilst paying for the drugs required by the government. The wealthy survived, and the poor began to die off due to insufficient finances. So this kind of shows another kind of theme that was brought up in Brave New World of the class divide, that kind of broadens between those who have money and those who do not. People who become rich, just like in today's society, the richer become richer and the poor become poor. And this is just this drug use that is that kind of takes over this population, just like in Brave New World. It furthers that divide among their population. History has a tendency to repeat itself, and just like the past with nicotine addiction, people ignored warning labels. As all actions and choices render consequences, new mankind suffered. So just like in the past, when people started smoking cigarettes, it's not like they didn't know that it was bad for them. Obviously, lighting up something with toxic chemicals will hurt you, but yet people still continue to do it. So it kind of shows this, look at him sleeping. It just kind of shows the human condition of people just blatantly ignoring warning signs and doing something just for the instant gratification they receive from puffing off a cigarette. And now this is kind of reinforced into my piece, that modern idea, through people ignoring the warning labels on the new drug that was introduced that kind of solved everyone's problems. They don't have to worry about becoming pregnant. They don't have to worry about happiness, as it provides that, same as Brave New World. The happiness that the new drugs brought was quickly followed by an aggressive come down of the drug. If the drug was not taken routinely. Drug dependence grew as a result, and aggression and violence augmented. While the fundamentalists prospered secretly, new mankind approaches oblivion. So this kind of shows the downfall of society, as drug dependence obviously renders consequences that are negative, including addiction. So the drugs that were providing people this happiness, when these drugs are taken away, just like in modern society, if you develop an addiction to drugs and then it's taken away from you, you're going to have a really hard crash whenever that dopamine is not administered routinely. So just like with modern society, the same thing happens with drugs here. And those who did not take the drugs, as the fundamentalists, they're doing completely fine, doing just as well. Just like in Brave New World, the people there, although they had some really odd routine rituals like whipping people and orgies, they didn't have to suffer from the effects of drug dependence and addiction and the consequences that come with altering human everything about humanity, including reproduction processes. People turned against each other. The world's problem of resource overconsumption was solved due to a decreasing population. But these newfound problems drove new mankind to madness and chaos. Simultaneously, sex lost its meaning, people lacked life purpose, and suicide rates skyrocketed. So you can see how this drug dependence, which comes with a plus of obviously not preventing pregnancy, that's great, and it's solving overpopulation, but it's also leading to, and it also solves the problem of overconsumption once the overpopulation reduces. But people are experiencing what it's like when they don't take the drug, and the developing addiction that comes from having to take something as a supplement for happiness, because when it's taken away, it makes it even worse. So this is just like in modern society. This is going to lead to people just a society that's not tranquil or peaceful, and this is actually the symbol for suicide. So we shall continue. The poor died off, the wealthy searched for safe haven. A culmination of suicide and murder left few to survive. The wealthy approached fundamentalists as a last resort, or else new mankind vanishes. Vulnerable citizens unbeknownstly take more drugs to relieve the stress of the apocalypse. So you can see this addiction is developing even more as they try to relieve their stress with more drugs, just like in Brave New World, whenever they met this other community of people who didn't live the way they did, with people being mass produced in labs. The main character, the girl in the book, took more soma whenever she was stressed out, whenever she got the permission to join one of the men in viewing this society that they shunned away, which was actually just normal society as of today. But yeah, the government encouraged drug use as a solution to the downfall of new mankind. The last few survivors kill each other off, and the last person of new mankind commits suicide. The fundamentalists receive ear of new mankind's downfall and vow to begin humanity via the reconstruction. So, just like in Brave New World, at the very end, when the main character decides to kill himself, same thing repeats here, and you can see the dissolution of society that they were trying to solve this problem of overconsumption and overpopulation by supplementing it with drugs, which also helped solve the problem of depression, but it eventually led to negative consequences that led to its implosion. And so they wanted to start over again. Fundamentalists being the only ones here who survived, the beauteous new mankind did not survive after all this. Fundamentalists, having not taken the drugs, are fertile and bear children for generations. The only remains of new mankind and are the warnings told by the fundamentalists to their children. Because little did new mankind know, there are no easy solutions to complex problems like happiness. And this governmental trust led to the obliteration of humanity, all in a futile attempt to maintain what all humans strive for, happiness. So they accomplished their goal for a fleeting moment, and they got what they wanted. They got their happiness. They got to have sex without meaning, just like today's world. People don't even know how many people they've had sex with. It used to be before marriage, it was completely at least unheard of, because it was shunned upon to have sex before marriage. But now people don't even know how many people they've had sex with. So this is the same idea here. Sex just loses its special meaning when you have multiple partners over a long period of time. It just, nowadays there's friends with benefits. You don't even have to have a romantic relationship with a person in order for you to experience something so close. So this eventually led to the oblivion. And so this kind of ties back into our regular world, as we obviously shouldn't trust the government, in my opinion, as Brave New World also illustrates. There are definitely those in power and authority use that power and authority to control mass populations. And just like we can see now with the coronavirus, who knows, maybe the coronavirus is spread by the government to reduce overpopulation, which is great because that's exactly what we're doing here. But as we can see, it does not turn out well. When you depend upon something that is tangible and as a supplement for peace and happiness, there are definitely going to be consequences for that, just as Brave New World shows with their solution of mass production. And I just use the reversal method here, and for my satire being the opposite, and overconsumption and overpopulation being reduced instead of increased significantly. So that's it.